here, lovely bank of cloud come over, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're following the Sands pack, it would seem, on the hunt early morning. Nobody else out, which is just marvelous. There were 3 adults in here, there's 1 here, and they seem to be circling around trying to get hold of each other. What a way to start. Sorry we're late, but worth the wait, I think. And just astonishing, the different colours. We're trying to get hold of Scott, everybody, but he's tracking Karula on. Oh, another one right here. Scott, you copy, Scott? Scotty, we've got them here at Junction Hippo Pools and Warri Pan Road. They're now mobile. North back towards the dam. I would come to dam and maybe do Warri Pan on one. I think the pups might be there. Right, Scott will come into the area. The great thing about being out this early in the morning, well, there are a number of great things, but this is a particularly good one, is that no one else is out. So we can put both of our Wild Earth cars in here, and with any luck, if they do go on the hunt, we'll be able to follow them much more closely than if this wasn't the case. The only that we've seen so far, they're definitely satellite dish-shaped ears looking forward. This is just fantastic. Scott so that he comes to the right place. Scotty now mobile north up. Got the rest of the pack there. Probably the rest of the pack is now on Warri Pan Road. There. Isn't that fantastic? They're the little ones. So the park Jean at a horrible angle here. Sorry about that, Jean. Oh wow. But they're all being totally silent. They're all trying to listen for something. There's not that normal greeting. Where the pups come rushing up to the adults and start begging. It's coming right past. Chandra I have parked basically on a 90-degree slope. On each other. Here come the rest of the adults now down the road. Alright, we're gonna. Here come some puppies. Anna Marie, as you say, we are so spoilt with all these wild dog sightings. I can't believe it. 2 packs. Here is just, I mean, it's spectacular. Sorry, I really should. I don't know what to do. The adults are up front. Here are the pups playing. I think let's go with the adults. They were right here. Oh dear, they've gone. John-Ray, any ideas? They're going to hunt around this area. I'm sure the pups will stay in that general vicinity.
Yeah.
We've got somebody, the adults. Just sneak a little bit further forward up the road here. We are very close to our eastern boundary, but hopefully it seems that they've instructed the pups to stay there. Here, the rest of the adults are running through here. listening, listening, listening all the time. Right, so I think we'll just go a little bit further straight up this road, because the others seem to be in there. No, they're not. That one's coming up the side. Julia, you're absolutely right. You say that this is a hell of a way to wake up and get the heart rate going. It certainly is. You bumble around here slightly bleary-eyed in the morning, and bang, suddenly your heart rate has gone from, well, roughly 10 beats per minute up to about 280 in 3.5 seconds. They've gone through here somewhere. Scotty, come straight along Gorry Pan Road. The pups are still there. I'm trying to follow the adults now. Well, I'm just going to do a slightly faster loop through here. They were heading east, then they were all over basically Drakensberger Junction. There. I'm trying to find it now. Scott is nearly at the pubs. Get up here, then we'll turn around and come back and see if we can't pick up the other adults. They went one of them went darting through here. I don't know where the rest went. Keep looking for tracks. Any tracks on the road here, so we'll turn around and go on into the block there. To follow them in there if they're on the hunt is going to be nigh on impossible. Keep eyes both sides of the road. Try not to take and hit off. Genres. There we go. Up ahead, straight up ahead on the road. So they're obviously looking here. They're not finding anything at the moment. Just trying to obviously get some hold of some breakfast. So if you're perhaps a new viewer and you're not familiar with their behavior, as soon as it gets light they will hunt, especially when they've got hungry mouths to feed, and that's themselves and their pups. And this is now the perfect kind of time for them, but they obviously don't want to leave the pups for too long, and B, they don't want to go too far away from them, so they're kind of circling in this area. And the rest are there, hoping to find an impala or a skinbok or something like that here. So we think this is the Sands pack. So Natasha, this is the first time I've ever seen these. So Natasha, you want to know which pack this is? I think it's the Sands pack, and as far as I understand it, there are 21 or 22 members of this pack, 9 pups, and this was the pack that had very unusually 2 females breeding, the alpha and the female bred, but they still only managed to keep only 9 pups, which is very unusual, especially considering that other pack we watched with 3 adults has managed to keep hold of 10 of their pups, 11 of their pups. I think that probably goes down to blind luck, to be honest. So they're listening, smelling all the time. And I don't know if you've ever smelt a wild dog, but it really is it's a very doggy smell. It cannot be mistaken for anything else. Scott, you're going to bump the adults there. Scott's coming into the sighting now. There's Scott. I'm just going to have a quick word with him. Hello. They are all just down here, and the adults keep leaving, circling, then going back.
Sounds good.
Let's go quickly across to Scott and get his impression of all this.
Well, isn't this such awesome news? James has done an incredible job tracking down the wild dogs again. Tibbs and myself have been racing here at breakneck speed to make sure we don't miss out on anything. And what I'm probably going to do... Oh, there's one more adult, a few more adults behind us. Tibbs, quick. So a few more adults. And we're going to rush you back to James. It's just a few more adults heading back towards them, and we'll probably stay here.
So everybody, this is just it's a kind of dominance display, sorting out the different hierarchies that are going to persist throughout the dog's lives and throughout the pup's lives. And you can see the omega animals lying on the ground. You can see the dominance, and there's a little bit of sort of disciplinary behavior, I think, as well going on from the adults. Now the adults are off on the hunt again. The alpha is now running past Scott. We'll stick here with the puppies for a second. I think the pups are going to maybe travel with the adults now. Quite young for them to be on the hunt with the adults. Oh, and the smell is just amazing. Right, so all of them now running down the road. Puppies, adults and all, going south down the road, looking for something to try and kill. All right, back to Scott quickly.
Look at this, they're playing right in front of the vehicle. And this is absolutely awesome. Tibbs, maybe wide is your best bet in this scenario. Just stay wide, there's so much action going on. Look at this, these are the adults playing now, just like the pups were playing yesterday. And we're in for a seriously adventurous morning. This pack is highly mobile. And what I'm probably going to do now is, it's so difficult, I almost kind of need to guess their next movements. And I'm probably going to let James continue down Drakensberg Road, where most of the adults are heading, and I'm going to maybe take Cheetah Cutline. And there goes James and Jandre, high energy. And there's a few more pups just left behind us here. What I am going to clear up, a lot of you are confused as to the name of this pack and how that all works. They were initially called the half-tail pack. There was one male in the pack who did have half a tail. He is no longer, and for some reason the powers that be in the wild dog naming fraternity have decided to now call the pack the Sabi Sands pack. So we'll just roll with it. It's just a name at the end of the day. It's not a huge thing, but that is a little bit of history. And we're going to send you back to James now, and like I said, I'm probably going to loop it back onto Cheetah Cutline and wait over there and see what happens. Maybe they'll head further east and we'll be ready and waiting for them.
It's just amazing. All 9 pups have just run past us into the road. They're not quite as aware of the adults as the adults are of the car, so we have to be very careful not to do some damage there. But they're all running with the pack. Very gentle pace for dogs. Normally they can run, they'll run 3 times the speed if they're actually on the hunt. I suspect when the adults go on the hunt, the puppies will go down. Way up ahead in front you can see the pups. Scotty, the adults are now heading in a straight line sort of northeast off the road. So yeah, maybe Cheetah cut around the best route. So Scott will go around onto the eastern boundary. Head south of there, Scotty, so you're not north, they're heading south from there, southeast. They're going through the block now. All right, everybody, it's going to get a bit bumpy. Follow them through here. I don't want to get in front of them because those pups need to listen to what's going on. Scott will come around the other side and we'll hopefully pick him up there. Sorry about the tree. It will pop up, I promise. It will survive. Ooh, whether this car will survive or not is another question. Watch your heads, Andre, no thorns. Watch your heads, everybody. Let's see if it'll work. Oh dear. It's really going due east now through this block. You need to keep a very beady eye. You can't just drive through here at 100 miles an hour. Highly important that we do that very carefully because the pups are now following the adults and they're not as aware. There they go, they are through there. Turn slightly south and they're pretty much, I think, central junction would be the way to go. Keeping Scott posted on the radio, of course. Watch your heads, everybody. Hope I don't get a punch out. One coming out there. Now, okay, there are a couple of them actually going into that loping canter, which indicates that maybe one of them spotted something to eat. Sorry, watch your head here. From that nasty thorns. No thorns here, just vicious trees. There we go in front of us. Enormous bush. Scott has got some of the Right, let's go across to Scott while we bash through here. I'll see you just now.
Isn't this so much fun? James gave me some wonderful directions and exactly where he told me to come. The pack have popped out. As you can see, the one is busy lightening its load, others are playing, and this is just too good to be true. 2 days in a row we have now been spoilt with some incredible action, and aren't they just the most exciting animals to follow on safari? There are all the pups coming up in the background. Now it's going to be hard to do a head count. Yesterday we counted 19. Not sure if any members were missing. I'm not sure actually what their previous head count was before this. But we did count 19 yesterday, 10 adults and 9 pups. Now, we have already been spoilt this morning with some great views of this pack, but I must warn you that we are on our eastern boundary. And if they continue further east of here, we will no longer be able to follow them, so that's a forewarning. But as you've seen, they move very big distances in very short spaces of time, and what may happen is that even though they may cross east, which some of them are doing now already, they may return in 5 or 10 minutes, so it won't be necessarily over yet. Now I can see James popping up in the background there. This is going to be a beautiful shot with all the pups in front of him. Too good. Too good to be true. Listen carefully. They've got a very strange form of communication, almost like a whooping howl, and one of them was just doing it now. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's Seems like they've just gone quiet. Anyway, here come the rest of the pack. And they come running straight past us. Some of them still heading straight east into Torchwood. Our eastern neighbours. But it's not over just yet, and maybe they'll come across some prey that comes fleeing back towards Djuma, and we'll be in pole position to join in the hunt with this pack. And it may be time to say goodbye to these animals. Here are the last members of the pack, all pups. I'm just going to spin around quickly to try and get you a few more views. And Blair, I know, always sad to hear of an animal losing its life, and a few of you are expressing your concerns for the loss of the half-tail male, after which this pack was temporarily named after. But who knows, certainly would have been a big male, and he may have lived a very successful life as a wild dog. He certainly wouldn't have been a pup, so not too sure how old he was when he did die and what caused his death, or even when it happened, Blair. But like you said, it's always sad to lose animals, especially animals like this. You can't help but fall in love with them. And I'm sure a lot of you now appreciate and understand why they are Brent's favourite animals. He's going to be very jealous when he hears about the wonderful sightings we've been having. Well, even though James is in a vehicle just a few meters away from us, he's got a much better angle than us, so we're going to pop you onto his vehicle.
So like Scott says, I'm sitting probably 5 meters from him, about 15 feet, but we've just got a slightly better angle. And I, of course, am just astonished that the amount of wild dog action that we've had here, and that we have 2 packs occupying the same area, is just indicative of how unterritorial they are. Although they do mark, they're not particular defenders of territory, and it'd be very interesting to see what would happen if this pack came across the Investic pack, which we normally see. What a special morning this has been. So you can see them there. This will be the last view we get of them, I think, and they still haven't found anything to hunt. They're obviously not that comfortable leaving the pups alone for too long. They kind of leave them, then they went off hunting, went around a bit, and we saw them, then they went straight back to the pups, picked them up, and now they're going to try a new area. And this is Torchwood, just to the east of us, which is a property, of course, that we are not allowed to traverse, unfortunately. But the dogs, with a home range of roughly, well, up to 1,000 square kilometers, normally about 450 square k's in this area, well, they can traverse as many properties as they like in this area. And that, everybody, I'm afraid, is that as far as the dogs go. We'll just give you an impression of where Scott is. So we're right here, and it is just such fun to follow dogs together, because they are so difficult to follow when they're on the hunt. But that, I'm afraid, is that. Are you going to go north?
I think I will just slowly putter along north.
Okay, we'll putter along to the south and bask in the joy of the sighting that was.
Very good.
Okay.
Well done, James.
All right. See you later.
See you later, everyone.
Was that not just fantastic? The dogs, I mean. And interestingly, Edward, aka Ed the Hammer, it's a nice Twitter handle, Edward. You want to know, or you've said it's fascinating to watch them when they're running from a vehicle, but it must be absolutely terrifying to watch them. I'm just keeping an eye out here and see if they don't pop out again. Scott will do the same. It must be terrifying seeing them running towards you on foot. It's actually not really. They're pretty relaxed with people on foot. They don't tend to be aggressive at all. As far as I know, there are no records of adult human beings being taken out by dogs, and I've seen them many times on foot. And when they're on the hunt and you see them running and they're on foot and you're on foot, they ignore you totally. Wonderful experience once. We were walking next to a dam at Ngala, which is not too far north of here, and we were trying to track, I think it was an elephant bull we were trying to track, and we were 3 or 4 of us on foot, and suddenly this impala came running over the dam wall, followed closely by 3 wild dogs. They did not even look at us. They just carried on chasing this impala. The impala went into the water and they just sat there. They didn't even look at us. So it's one of my favorite things, is to see wild dogs on foot. Thank you, Ed. Right, let's see if we can find something else. I mean, it's going to be a tough act to follow that. Now, of course, what you do see is us driving through the bush making a noise. And Derek, you want to know what the effects of that are, and do we have any effect on the hunt and that sort of thing. Derek, first of all, the big thing for you to notice is that it's going to be louder where you are than it is for us, because you are right next to the microphones, basically. You're basically sitting with your ear next to the most aggressive noise. So it's not quite as loud as it comes across to you, but it is loud, and we do need to be very sensitive about it. When they're on the hunt, though, they're not audio hunters. They're very visual hunters. So it doesn't worry me too much when we're on the hunt. I don't think we're going to affect them much. When they're looking for each other and they start calling and they start listening like that, it's always a good idea to turn off every so often, so that should they call, they can hear each other calling. But absolutely, we have to be sensitive about it. There's no question that a vehicle bouncing through the bush is not the same as a vehicle not bouncing through the bush behind them. But Derek, I don't believe that when they're on the hunt, especially for dogs, it makes too much difference. It's not the same for the cats. The cats, of course, are very audio-orientated hunters, and their prey species will listen quite carefully, and so when the cats are on the hunt, you kind of just got to sit and wait and watch and see what you can see. But with the dogs, once they've seen something, they go for it, and they don't worry too much about listening. The prey doesn't worry about anything other than running as fast as they can. So, no, I think that's your answer. No question, we do have an effect on various things, so we do need to be very sensitive with the vehicles. But it is much louder, like I say, through the microphones than it is out here. So we'll head down to the south of this cut line here, see what we can spot, maybe follow up on something else. I didn't hear any lions calling during the night. I did hear an enormous amount of very angry hyena activity, so we'll check around, see if we can't find some of that, and then maybe head into the area where Scott had Karula's tracks earlier this morning. Just far to the north of us, not too far from where we saw her last night. Sounds like while I was away on my little break 3 days, you had some quite astonishing sightings. I should perhaps go away more often. That's your cue, Jean-Andre, to say, no, don't do that. No, can't see anything further on this cut line at the moment, so we'll turn into the west for the next available opportunity. Jana, you say you're coming to visit the Selby Sands next week. Jana, I think that's fantastic. I would love to know where you're going, and you hope that the dogs stick around. We also hope a lot that the dogs stick around. They are the best things to follow. They're the most exciting, and they're just so beautiful. So Jan, I hope they hang around. And Nick and Lincoln, thank you very much. Welcome back after my extended hiatus. There's a giraffe of 3 days. Hello, giraffe. You don't need to worry about dogs, of course. Whew. Now we can take a breather. A much more peaceful animal. No less magnificent, but slightly less frenetic. Beautiful giraffe cow. Feeding on some new combretum or bush willow leaves. There's another one off to the left-hand side. They're often in these kind of loose herds. They don't seem to be particularly socially concerned. I'm sorry, you can't actually see that one. Let me sneak forward a little bit and you might be able to get a view. No, I think we're just actually going to wait for that one to come out. That one's nasty thick bush, and this one's in a really good position. So kind of loose herds of agglomerations, and they're supposed to be loose social arrangements. I'm not sure that they are so loose. I think maybe they're a lot more firm than we think they are. And because giraffe are not obvious communicators, we don't know really how they communicate. There are lots of theories about infrasonic communication. There's probably quite a lot of olfactory or communication, which means they're smelling. But I think these associations are probably a lot more firm than we think they are. Jean-Andre got some wonderful footage from the air yesterday of a male giraffe trying his level best with the female for mating, and it's very seldom that we see giraffe mating, and we actually did see him mount her twice, Jean-Andre? 3 times, which is spectacular. I've sat and watched giraffe for ages, and I've never seen that before. Well, I've seen it once before. And this is a good time for them to mate because they have a gestation period of just over a year, and that would put the calf being born sort of December next year, which with any luck, well, not much to go on this year, but with any luck that will mean a kind of green and verdant land for the calf to be born into. At the moment, of course, very dry. It's been extremely hot. We popped past Buffels Hook Dam on our way to finding the dogs this morning, and really getting very dry indeed. Mud coming out of the bottom. I think within a week or so it's going to be gone, unless we get some proper rain, and I haven't seen any forecast. That said, there was no cloud forecast for today, and there's a really nice bank of shading cloud over us after the 40-degree day we had yesterday. Let's slip forward a bit. That's the other one coming there. Stop here. Sherry, you were worried about the drought, and you say it amazes you how these animals manage to survive a drought like this. Sherry, we're not exactly in a dire situation yet. Right? It's not unusual for us not to have had the main rain by this stage of the day, or this stage of the year. But because last year was dry, it's made everything progressively drier than it might be otherwise. But that said, there are dams all the way through Buffels Hook. All the landowners there have got their own little patches of water which they often pump so that animals can go and drink there. The Sand River is not far from here, and that tends to be a perennial river, and if it isn't, there will certainly be pools in there that they can drink from. Just remember also that water is a limiting factor, and that's a good thing. It means that some animals will certainly, well, in theory, in a natural system, animals might die off during the dry season, and that's okay, because it keeps numbers down, and obviously there's a certain amount of dynamic equilibrium, and what that means is that a dynamic equilibrium is an equilibrium that allows for certain changes, and that provides a certain amount of stability and robustness for the long-term survival of the ecosystem. But what is very difficult for us as humans to appreciate is that sometimes those cycles, those kind of cycles of the equilibrium, are longer than a human lifespan, or certainly longer than our involvement in an area like this. So it might be 10 lean years followed by 10 really good rain years, but we are obviously not able to just let animals die off in an area like this, or we seem to be unable to do that. It's very difficult to do that, and so it doesn't really happen out here. So Kerry, don't worry, there is enough for them to drink. There will be some difficult times, but they're okay. And then, we know the impala are about to drop their lambs with any luck. And for many years, people thought that impala were able to hold their lambs back until conditions were favorable, and they were able to give birth in the kind of, when as it got wet. And Djuma, you want to know, do animals modify their mating behavior according to the droughts? Djuma, I don't think they do it. Certainly, they don't do it consciously. And the reason for that, Djuma, is that they don't necessarily know. They don't have any better predictive abilities of the weather than we do, I don't think. And over the long term, I'm not sure they know what's going to happen. But what does happen, of course, is that in a very dry time, so say if we have a prolonged drought, much like with human beings, if the nutritional status of the females goes down, or the males, their ability to conceive a fetus will obviously be reduced. So if a female is really hungry and lacking vitamins, she's not going to ovulate properly, her endometrial layer will not form correctly, and so the chances of her carrying a fetus to term will be markedly reduced. So I don't think it's a conscious choice, Djuma, but I think it would certainly have an effect over the course of a prolonged drought. Let's sneak a little bit further. What? Trying to start the engine. It's just much quieter. Djuma doesn't have a quiet engine. See there the grey sky, and that giraffe is almost as fascinated by us as we are by her. Long tongue. I think it's the longest tongue of any mammal, if I'm not mistaken. About 70 centimeters. That's over 2 feet, just over 2 feet. That's a pretty long tongue. Chandra, you don't have a tongue that long. Got the other one now here as well. Just going to sneak forward here. She's right here. Look at that. That's spectacular. Only now about 10 meters, 30 feet from us, if that. Beautiful. Eating a plant called the weeping wattle. And And you may have noticed that little bit of sort of gap in the skin, and that's a fairly standard thing. It's not a wound, it's something called an ectoparasite, or a parasite that affects the skin of giraffe, and they all seem to get it, and it's quite a good way of aging them. She's a middle-aged giraffe, this one, I'd say, and that's perfectly normal and doesn't seem to affect them too badly. Oh, I can hear some elephants shouting. That's what that giraffe's just lifted its head to listen to. Way in the distance. Giraffe always keeping an eye and an ear, but as you can see, they're obviously much taller than most things, and so they do tend to look rather than listen. That calling you can hear is a lilac-breasted roller, but unfortunately is flying right above us. So there we go. No, so we can't get him, and he's going to do his rolling display. But he's in a position that Jean-Ray cannot get. No, we'll stay with the giraffe for now. Lots of bird activity at the moment. We're relatively subdued dawn chorus, because I think they do tend to prefer the sun in the mornings, the giraffe. Not the giraffe, the birds. What am I talking about? There seems to be a bit of a bird party going on to the southeast of us. Jean-Ray, I've spotted a leopard tortoise. Just here. There it is. You see it there. So everybody, as we get closer to what sounds like a fairly loud bird party, there is a leopard tortoise, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of recently. They do tend to be, well, I've seen many over the last few weeks. After the little bit of rain that we had, they all seem to come out from wherever they were estivating, and here they are. Now, to estivate it's a bit like hibernation, but instead of happening during the cold, it happens during the dry. So what tortoises will do is go into this kind of state of torpor, or with a very low metabolic rate when it's dry, because they're not very good at finding water. They're not great migrators, are tortoises, given the speed at which they're able to move, which is not very fast. Look at that, isn't that lovely? And he'll be looking for nice fresh little grass shoots. And if it gets dry again, he'll go back into estivation. He won't hang around and sort of suffer the drought, if you know what I mean. Wonderful, look how brilliantly camouflaged he is. So during the winter months when we don't see them, I think they're in kind of a little bit like that hollow under the tree there that you saw. They get themselves into some thick leaf litter or thick tree, or fallen bushes, and there they'll settle down for the winter time, because we don't see them in the winter at all. Not very athletic, as you can see, but I think they do an astonishingly good job of moving around. Right, let us move gently along. Pretty good. Just quickly go back and have a look and see if we can't see those giraffe again. But if not, we'll carry on. There we go. Is that alright for you, Andre? I didn't stall, I promise. I really meant to stop the car. Now you can see, maybe, I'm going to stop here for now, if that's all right, Andre. Giraffe have a black-blue tongue, Now, Gilly, you want to know if there's a reason for its colour. Gilly, I really couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. Just trying to think of other tongues out here. Quite a few of them are that kind of, it's more sort of purple, if you like. There are not many pink ones. I suppose all the cats and the other predators have got pink tongues like ours. But if you look at an impala's tongue or a kudu's tongue, they tend to be that kind of very dark colour. And maybe it's got something to do with having a purely vegetarian diet. I suspect it's got something to do with the covering on them. The covering on them that is basically allows them to eat. Basically allows them to eat a whole lot of thorns and not be cut up by them. So I think that's probably got something to do with it, Gilly, but as to the specific colour, I really don't know. And you can see them at the moment, they're eating a whole lot of Ziziphus mucronata or buffalo thorn. And Siberia, you want to know if they vary their diets according to season, like when the marula fruits come. Absolutely they do. They vary their diets according to what is abundant and what they need nutritionally. I think they have a greater understanding than we do of what nutritional value these trees have and the different trees have. I don't think they obviously they have a genuine chemical understanding of it, but they definitely have a physiological need for certain things, and that points them towards certain trees, I think. So when there are marula fruits around, that's a time of plenty. It's a good time to eat some sugar, get some vitamin C, and hopefully stock up on that for the rest of the year. There's not a great deal of fruit around here. That said, I don't think they eat a huge number of marula fruits. They're not like the elephants, which will go crazy on marula fruits. They will eat a few. I've seen them eating some. And of course they also like to eat bones during the winter time. They like to suck on bones, and that gives them a lot of phosphorus. Now, Dave, in Texas, you want to know, are they about, basically how tall are they in feet? A big male is about 4.5 meters. Now that in feet is about 16 feet, 16 or 17 feet. So a male like that, a female like this, is probably sitting at about 3 meters, Jean-Andre? What do you think? Maybe 3.2? And if we multiply that by 3 1/4, we get about 10 feet. Well done, Jean-Andre. 10 feet or so. So Dave, that's about 10 feet. And then Chris Rogue, you want to know about that interesting phenomenon where for a giraffe, resting the head upright is less effort than putting it on the ground because of an arrangement of tendons in the vertebra that allow them to basically keep their heads upright. That is correct, Chris. And so for a giraffe to stick its head down to drink is not it relaxing the muscles, it's sort of contracting them so that it can pull the neck down, and then as it stops drinking and relaxes, so the head will come up to its natural resting position. And that of course is because the giraffe needs to keep its head upright, because its neck is so long, so it has an enormous pressure build up in the brain if its head goes below the horizontal. There's a complex system of valves, and the heart is obviously very large in order to overcome gravity and keep the brain fed with blood. And so as soon as they put their heads down, the pressure build up in the brain is enormous, and that's obviously no good, because nobody likes their brains to explode. Not so, Jean-Andre? Now, a lot of postulation as to the colour of the giraffe's tongue, and Gail and Sandra, you think maybe it's got something to do with sunscreen. Gail and Sandra, I would say that is unlikely, not impossible. I think it's unlikely because their tongues, of course, are mostly in the shade. It may have something to do with that, but I don't think so. I really think it's got to do, look, sometimes things are just unanswerable out here, and maybe that's one of the things, but I think it's got a lot to do with what they eat and the fact that they do need to protect their mouths from the thorns. And a lot of animals that eat thorns, so if we look at impala as another great example, they've got very black tongues. A lot of herbivores do, and I think maybe there's some kind of covering on it that helps them to get over the thorns, and that's what that colour is. Certainly very uncat-like or undog-like. Auntie Lynn, you want to know if giraffes sneeze and can I imitate it? I've probably heard the odd giraffe sneeze. Yes, they go like this. They go. That's what they look like when they sneeze. And then one of them, you'll hear them going. You'll get them sort of saying bless you to each other in an infrasonic fashion. Let's head across to Scott. He's got some stalks. He's at Buffelshoek Dam, and I'm going to carry on down the road here. See you just now.
There's some new additions to the Egyptian goose population here at Buffelshoek Dam, and we're quite far, but I'm not sure if Tibbs is at full zoom. There is some tiny little goslings. Shame the one at the back's got a bit of a limp, but it's trying to keep up with his brothers and sisters, or her brothers and sisters. And if my abacus is working correctly, 2, 4, 6, 7. 2, 4, 6, 7, I think. Looks like 7 little goslings. Interestingly, the same amount of goslings that are at the Arathusa waterhole. So that's obviously a kind of regular size clutch for these geese. And these could well have been born yesterday or the day before. We've never seen them here, yet we have been spending a lot of time here. And as soon as geese or ducks hatch, they are capable of following their parents. They don't stay in the nest for any given period of time. From the moment they are born, they do not receive one mouthful of food from their parents. They are capable of feeding themselves. All they need is guidance from their parents, and it looks like either mom or dad is taking them for a walk, trying to tire them out so that they can have a snooze later without disturbing them. Wonderful news, and it is the time of the year where we can expect to see not only lots of baby birds, but lots of other baby mammals as well. So really looking forward to that. Other action also happening here at the waterhole. A whole bunch of woolly-necked storks, which are the ones with the white throats and black bodies, as well as a pair of saddle-billed storks. The male on the right, the female on the left. And, oh, it looks like the female just caught a little fish. Watch closely, the fishing has been incredible here at Buffelshoek Waterhole for the predatory birds. And here comes Mother Goose. Goslings in tow. Are they going to pop into the water? Look at them waddling. This is so awesome. What a magical scene. Oh, there's a fish. There we go. That's a clear catch and kill. Well done, lady. This is the female. She's got yellow eyes and lacks the yellow wattles at the base of her bill. And then, oh, look at the other parent staying with the straggler. That's so awesome. So the one goose has stayed behind the one adult to try and keep the one duckling who's got some kind of a problem with its foot. I wonder what it could be. What may well have happened is that when the little gosling was jumping out of its nest, possibly 4 or 5 meters to the ground, it maybe landed badly. And there come the rest of the youngsters running up to it. This is incredibly cute. The noise that you can hear, wap, 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 is the Egyptian geese communicating with one another. So they are certainly the most vocal of the birds here for now. As I was saying though, they nest up in trees, and as soon as the babies hatch, they need to start life with a serious leap of courage and faith, jumping out of their nest and tumbling to the ground. They are unable to fly, but I guess because their bodies are young and flexible, they typically don't get injured very often, otherwise that would be a flawed plan in their evolution. But I'm guessing that that one gosling may have possibly injured its leg whilst jumping out of the nest. Now, the goslings at Arathusa waterhole were born, I would say, about a month ago, and they've already probably quadrupled in size. So their growth rate is fairly quick, but they will still clearly be baby goslings. Oh, can you get to see the pied kingfisher hovering there, Tebs? It's kind of just above the woolly neck stalks to the right. There we go, you're spot on. Watch closely here. Let's see if we don't get this pied kingfisher catching a fish, or even just to see it hovering. Look at that, incredible aviation skills as well as incredible camera skills by Tebs. Look at this. What a morning for bird watching. Wow. Oh, and not one but two, a happy pair of pied kingfishers. I can't tell who's who, but you can distinguish male from female. Oh, one just lightened its load and is probably going to, or possibly going to, think about going fishing. So that is the female on the top right. She's wearing a bra. You can see those two little black spots on her chest. And the male will have a bow tie and a cummerbund. So two different sets of stripes on his chest. Here's the one below. As I was saying though, Egyptian geese growth, they'll take at least a year before they start looking like adult geese. So we are going to enjoy, or be able to enjoy, these cute fluffy goslings for quite some time. Great question through from Marianne. Seeing all these other storks here, what are the chances that they may try and snipe one of those young goslings? And with these two species here, not hugely likely, especially because Egyptian geese can be quite ferocious when it comes to defending their young. Although if there was any marabou storks here, which there were some yesterday, they would be far more inclined to take a chance. They're a bigger bird and are a little bit more open-minded when it comes to eating baby birds. The saddle-billed storks and woolly-necked storks are more inclined to feeding on fish or aquatic invertebrates, whereas marabou storks will even be seen at kills out on land where there may be carrion or carcasses to feed on. They're a lot more versatile when it comes to what they feed on. Looks like the adult goose is doing some grooming along with all of the goslings there, teaching them how to keep clean. The hippo don't seem to be doing too much, and they won't be doing too much all day. They would have spent the whole night out feeding on grass, which there's not too much of at this time of the year. A tough time for the herbivores. And the hippo not only have to worry about where they're going to get their next meal, but also they're going to be seriously concerned about the drying water sources where they like to spend their days. They're going to have less and less options as to where to hang out during the daytime, so they've got some tough times ahead. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle ever so slightly. There is one other bird that I've just spotted that's hiding behind a tree. And if I just creep forward a meter or two, then Tebs will be able to film it as well. Oh, actually two. One wasn't hiding. But this is a slightly better view. If you just look down here, closest to us, there's one of the hummerkorps. And it seems like there's a pair. There's another one that we'll show you a little bit later. Now, we just got a question through from Ria, and it's a good one. She would like to know if these storks will do their breeding here in South Africa, or do they migrate elsewhere and breed somewhere else in the winter. And these storks that we see here are not migratory storks. The saddle-billed stork and the woolly-necked stork do not migrate. It's just the white stork that will migrate, and that goes all the way up to Europe, where they nest on chimneys in urban areas. The white storks haven't arrived in South Africa yet that I've seen. And there's another stork called an Abdims stork, but it's an intra-African migrant. It doesn't go as far as Mediterranean Europe. And the rest of the storks we get are here year-round. Like I said earlier, the marabou stork is another stork that we see here from time to time. If you just zoom in onto the storks on the kind of left, the fish that they're catching are so small that it only takes a few seconds for them to gobble them up. But one of those storks did catch a fish a little bit earlier. Oh, the saddle-billed stork's got one now to the right. That one you should be able to get to, Tebs. To the right, Tebs. Oh, just swallowed it. Far right now, Tebs, on the water's edge. That's a slightly bigger fish. Far right. There we go. It's busy trying to kill it. I'm not too sure what kind of fish. Oh, look at this. This is incredible. It's using, because it's a slightly bigger fish, it's trying to kill it before it swallows it. With the smaller fish, they'll swallow them alive. Not a good way to go. Now, I can't see whether this is a tilapia or a catfish. It's looking more like a tilapia, and it's trying its best to kill it before. Risky business doing it in the water, woolly-necked stork. I would advise taking it off the water to try and do this. It does look like a tilapia. It's going to be interesting to see it try and swallow this one. That's better. Out onto dry land. And it's always quite entertaining watching birds try and swallow prey that they've caught that's a little bit too big for them. So this is going to be a good one. It wasn't too long ago when pied kingfishers, possibly the same two that we had a glimpse of earlier, one of them caught a massive fish and it just sat with it for kind of, I think, half an hour or 45 minutes. We sat waiting patiently to see if it would try and swallow it, and eventually we had to leave to go and see what else was going on, and never knew the final outcome to whether it swallowed it or... Oh, here goes. Is it going to try? No. not quite ready yet. Shame the fish are not in a fortunate position at the moment. Well, I guess these ones are lucky. A lot of the other waterholes have dried up long ago and the fish within them have all been fed on already. And what I find fascinating is how quickly the Bush Telegraph sends word that there is a great opportunity to feed here, as it's drying up to a point where the fish don't have many hiding places. And I wouldn't be surprised if we come back here this afternoon and there's even more birds around. It's possibly worth doing a count while we watch that one try and swallow its prey. I'm going to just count how many woolly neck storks there are, and there's 3 in frame, and out of frame there's another 2, 4, 6, 8. So 8 woolly neck storks. It'll be interesting to see if there's any more this afternoon. I think there were about this number yesterday. But there were also 3 marabou storks. Marabou storks tend to have lazy mornings. They don't get active very early on, so I'm not surprised that they aren't here at the moment. They'll probably come in for brunch. What has happened with that stork? Did it manage to swallow the fish? What has happened, or is the fish still floating there? I think I may see the fish still. Oh no, that's a feather the one stork picked up. So what? I wonder what happened. I lost focus there. If any of you did see the stork swallow the fish, let us know. Oh no, it's still there. They've still got it. Maybe another one's going to try and attempt to swallow it now. The marabou stork would have no problem doing this. Hello to Chris, and thank you for your compliments to both the pied kingfisher for their incredible display of aerial acrobatics, as well as to Teb's camera work doing such a great job keeping you in the right place to enjoy those beautiful scenes. And now the saddlebill's got a fish. Can you believe it? It is a time of plenty for these birds. And I think they've just left that other tilapia on the water's edge. Can you believe it? Those woolly neck storks are still not too sure what to do with it, but there we go. The saddle-billed stork managed to swallow its smaller fish that it just caught. Now let's see if the saddle-billed stork doesn't catch kind of wind of what's going on with those woolly necks. Oh, look on the right here. This is a pleasant surprise. A hyena. Looks like a kind of slightly younger hyena. It's in great condition. You can still see its spots quite clearly. Doesn't have any major notches or scars in its ear, although it does have 1 or 2 scars on its rump. And its backside is very wet. It's obviously been sitting in the water without us even noticing. Been so focused on the birds, and it's coming right up to us here. Good morning. What would you like from us? We've got no snacks on this vehicle. What a surprise! Well, it's coming over to greet Tibbs. Very well-mannered hyena, this. There's its wet bottom. It's been sitting in the mud. And as we explained yesterday with Wild Dog, who also don't mind getting wet, hyena are another animal that are happy to wallow in the mud. Wouldn't it be incredible to know what sense it's processing with that extremely powerful sense of smell? It's probably smelling the wild dog that were here not so long ago this morning. James tracked them from this area. And it's not uncommon for a hyena to follow the scent of other predators, like wild dog, like leopard, with the knowledge that if they follow that scent trail for long enough, they should eventually get to some form of a kill. Even if it is only the scraps and leftovers that the wild dog have left, that may well be more than enough to constitute a good meal for a hyena that has bone-crushing jaws that are capable of getting through parts of a carcass that wild dogs wouldn't even think of beginning to feed on. It's just moved off into a very thick area, so we're going to leave it to its business, and I don't think we're going to get any better views than what we just had as it came up and greeted us. So we can now return to the birds and back to Chris's question and comments. She, on the topic of kingfisher, was very, very excited by the prospect of the return of the woodlands kingfisher. And Chris, thanks for that reminder. We are really looking forward to their return. Any day now, they could surprise us. They've got an incredible call. Chick, brrr, is my hopeless impersonation of their call. In the book, it is mentioned as a loud trilling song, descending and fading. And I have got the book out here to show you a picture of a woodlands kingfisher so that you can all be ready to see this beautiful bird. The woodlands kingfisher on the bottom here isn't actually given justice by this picture. Old Ronald Cook is the guy who painted it. A far better painting than I would ever be able to do, so well done, Ronald. But I feel that the colors you used are not quite right. This electric turquoise blue isn't quite electric turquoise in the painting, whereas in real life it is a beautiful, like I say, electric turquoise blue. So we're going to be seeing these in the next couple of days even. They could arrive. So one of the later migrants to return. Good. Well, let's see what's happening with the storks. They seem to be on the go slow now after already having fed on so many fish. Bless, excuse. And Anna Marie has just mentioned that she has a great sighting of a grey heron at Pete's Pond, where there's another 24-hour-a-day waterhole camera. And according to Anne-Marie, this grey heron caught quite a large fish and it almost choked on it. It almost didn't survive swallowing its meal. And that must have been great to watch, Anne-Marie. You do get spoiled with some wonderful sightings out here. Tebbs has found the goslings. And what I would really love is for them to go for a little swim. It's often quite beautiful to watch. What will happen is one adult will lead, the rest of the goslings will follow closely, almost in a slipstream or in a wake, with the other adult following up from the rear. So that could well happen, but maybe it's a little bit cool this morning. Oh, look at Tebbs, he's onto the pied kingfisher again. Oh, great work, Tebbs. And again, just couldn't commit. That's the female again. There's another tiny bird just in front of it called a three-banded plover. And it, interestingly enough, also had a few chicks that I've forgotten about. They had two tiny chicks, the three-banded plovers, last time I checked. A couple of days back, so we must keep an eye out for them. There's another bird that we haven't discussed yet, the blacksmith lapwing, which was formerly a plover, now it's become a lapwing. And it looks like the three-banded plover is having a little bath. Well, earlier on we were discussing the Okay, another bird has just popped onto the equation, and excuse me for my excitement, but it's incredibly pretty.